Chapter 5, Part 3. As the orchestra finished up the next song, Hayes bowed to Emerald while she returned the favor with a curtsy. Hayes's face gave Emerald a "there is someone behind you" glance. As she peeked over her shoulder, she saw Derek shadowing her. When their eyes met, he gave a polite bow to them both. "I'm so sorry to interrupt you two, but I was hoping to ask the princess for the next dance." Derek smiled at her with his pale eyes, then flashed Hayes a forceful stare. "Certainly, I'd be delighted," Emerald replied, exchanging looks with Hayes. A smirk appeared on Hayes's face. Hayes bowed to them both, grandly waving his jeweled fingers. "Have fun," he told Emerald, turning away into the crowd. Derek took Emerald's hand into his and wrapped his other hand firmly around her waist, pulling her close. His intoxicating scent lingered once again, making her blood temperature rise, tickling her senses. "Should I be jealous?" Derek questioned jokingly as they began to dance. "Hayes?" Emerald asked, blushing. "No, Derek, he's not like that." She faced him again after he spun her slowly, giving him a faint smile. "You have nothing to worry about." "Good. I don't like competition." "Oh? Is that so?" Emerald said playfully. "Are you saying that you are competing for my affection?" She realized it was the wine talking and not what she would say truly, but it didn't matter. She wanted to make Derek perfectly aware of her flirtations. Derek laughed at her suggestion. "Would it bother you if I were?" He tightened his hold around her waist, drawing her close to his face. The two paused for a moment, looking at each other while the room continued to dance. Her heart leapt through her chest, making it impossible for her to remember to breathe. In her raptured state, all Emerald could do was remain breathless. There had been no other man she ever wanted like Derek. All these years she had thought about him, fantasized about him coming to Arcadia for her. Never did she ever think it would actually happen. It was like she had stepped into one of her dreams and never wanted to leave. Gathering her senses, she smiled shyly at Derek. "No, it wouldn't. In fact, I would quite encourage it," Emerald stated softly. Derek answered her back with a bright smile, pulling her closer as they continued to dance. Emerald saw from the corner of her eyes photographers taking photos of them, their cameras flashing continuously. By morning, all of Arcadia would know about her dancing with the prince, and no doubt many of the articles would speculate about a possible betrothal, and for good reason. The prince and princess dancing together, both still eligible for marriage. That story would fuel the media for a while. The flashes continued, and more photographers kept coming. With each flash, Emerald became more and more dizzy. The wine was hitting her hard and very suddenly. Derek noticed, leading Emerald off the floor while shooing away the photographers in the process. "Are you okay?" "I've had too much wine. I should retire for the evening before I make a fool out of myself or possibly black out." Derek put his arm around her. "There is no possible way that you could make a fool of yourself," he assured her. "Come, let me escort you to your quarters." "Are you sure? I do have my handmaidens to escort me." "I was actually making an excuse to see you a bit longer before the night was over," he confessed with a smile. "Feel free to play along." Emerald flushed. She scolded herself in her mind for suggesting she was such a weakling. "Well then, please, by all means." Derek led Emerald through the hall, supporting her weight with his arm around her while she tried to focus on each step. The floor began to swirl, and faces became a blur. All the while, she felt Derek's strength leading her out of the main hall and into the depths of the palace. Splotches of white entered her vision as she felt a tugging at her fabric as Derek picked her up into his arms. Derek's hard body was warm and inviting, and strong, so strong. Emerald smiled to herself as he continued to carry her through the hall of blurs. The only thing she could see was a pattern on his sleeve. Emerald buried her face in his tunic, letting the moment sink into her memory. What seemed like only seconds later, they had arrived at her quarters. Derek put her down carefully as a white blur, who could only be one of her handmaidens, retreated inside to prep the room for her, giving Emerald her privacy. Emerald looked into his intense eyes, the only thing that remained clear in her blurry state. She leaned back against the frame of the door, giving him a wanting look. "When will I see you again?" Derek leaned into her. Her body began to throb as he took her hand and kissed it with his hot breath, then placed it against his chest. "Tomorrow morning, if that would please you," he said smoothly, reaching for a lock of her long, wavy green hair and lightly brushing it aside. The very touch gave her a warm flutter inside, her heart quickening. "Yes, it would," Emerald answered, giving him a delicate smile. "Very much so." A moment of hesitation appeared on Derek's face. His icy eyes shone as he gazed upon hers in silence. Was he going to kiss her? How she hoped that he would. "Good night, Emerald," he said as he bowed to her. Her body trembled while she tried to contain her excitement. "Good night, Derek," Emerald murmured dreamily, the smile still on her face. He kissed her hand one last time. His lips lingered above her hand where he had kissed it. Then he gave Emerald a soft smile. After a brief moment, he retreated down the hall, his deep blue cape swaying gently behind him. She watched Derek until he had disappeared into the darkness. After he was out of sight, Emerald slid her back down the frame of the doorway, then gently rested her head against the wall with a pleased sigh. She had no idea how she'd managed to fall asleep tonight.